So the thing about Minecraft is that there will never be an end to the things we can do, and I think that is something that makes this community so unique and wonderful, especially among a sea of other games. That's why when I decided to start making content, I chose this game community when I could have picked so many others that I enjoy. I ultimately will never be bored of it. And apparently you guys won't either, because this is 200 days in hardcore better Minecraft. If you haven't already seen my first 100 days, I highly recommend you watch that video first, because that will make everything make sense. Alright, now here are the goals we're setting for this video. I want to make the ugly ass wither farm that we made pretty, remodel my base, get more villagers and make a proper village/trading post, build a beacon, a conduit, an enderman farm, and collect all the armors available in this mod pack. I also want to kill all the remaining bosses that I haven't taken on yet. I did learn after my last video that I did miss quite a few, so we'll be killing them as we come across them. I'm not going to go out of my way because I don't want spoilers. As of writing this, I don't know if I've met these goals, but we'll see. Anyway, I am a YouTuber, so I have to remind you to like and subscribe. Only a small portion of my viewers are subscribed, so you should double check just to make sure. And you should definitely check out my Discord. My Discord members get to participate in these videos and see sneak peeks, so if you're interested in that, you should totally join. I also stream once a week on Twitch. All the links will be in the description, and now that that's over, enjoy 200 days in hardcore better Minecraft. So I woke up on day 100 and I immediately went to fix my settings. I actually had turned off shaders while I was grabbing my thumbnail and everything, so I had to go in and readjust a bunch of my stuff. After I fixed my settings, I went and I started making my wither farm pretty using some of the materials in the area. I actually had to round out the corners, or I guess unround out the corners, so that I could do this properly. Something kind of crazy is that I actually had to go to the creeper farm in order to get gunpowder for my fireworks because I ran out. I also added an uncrafting table to my desk in my base and uncrafted books for paper. And I finally slept in my own bed. On day 101, I took down what I did to my wither farm. I really didn't like it, and I wanted it to actually look a little different than what I was initially planning. I sorted out my inventory and made 2 soul crystals, and that was pretty much it for day 101. On the next day, I went to use the crystals on my farm because I was like, I can just use the spawner I already made to upgrade the spawner, you know, with the new soul crystal. I don't know why I thought that would work, because it's so like obvious that this mod is well done and well thought out, and yeah, so they basically made it so that I can't do this. So after realizing that I can't upgrade it, I just went back to making it look nice because I wasn't going to upgrade it. I also got enough skulls to fight another wither. I wanted to fight another wither so I could get more nether stars. I at least needed to fight probably 1 or 2 more withers because there were 2 things I really wanted, and those 2 things required nether stars. First goal being a beacon. I went and fought another wither, and it actually popped one of the life charms I had, which is crazy. When I woke up on day 103, I really just wanted to learn how I could get more of those life crystals. It unfortunately looked like they were not craftable and they were something I was going to have to find in a loot chest. Considering I hadn't found a woodland mansion yet, this would be the easiest way for us to access something similar to a totem. I grabbed some extra fireworks and I made my way out to the Twilight Forest. First I looted a redcap hill. I really wanted a bunch of the ores from there, especially because I hadn't set up a proper iron farm in the first 100 days. It actually might be a goal for the next video I do on this, but I never wound up setting up an iron farm, specifically because the redcap hills were so rich in it anyway. I came back and I emptied my inventory of all the stuff that I could, and then I started clearing off this little island. Now this island was something I'd contemplated building on for a long time, but I wasn't fully sure what I was going to do with it yet. I actually wanted to get my beacon together soon too, so I actually went back to the area where I normally kill the wither since that's pretty deep underground, and I vein mined a bunch of stuff. I started setting up the beacon. I wasn't fully sure on how I could do this because I've never actually had a beacon in any of my worlds before. For the most part, I don't stick around long enough in a Minecraft world to get to these extra late game stages, especially because the SMP I run is monthly mod pack and we only run the mod pack for a month, so there's no like late game what do I do kind of stages, you know? I did a bunch of villager trading, and this was mostly so I could get some emerald blocks for the beacon. I figured that this would be the easiest way to get more ore blocks for the beacon. I also realized that a bunch of my villagers had randomly died, and I wasn't really sure why. I didn't know why this was happening. I decided to take down my beacon and trade away some of the ores for more emeralds, and I also uncrafted some of the stuff I traded the emeralds for so that I could get more diamond blocks for the beacon, which in hindsight I don't think was very smart because I don't think it matters what ore you have underneath the beacon as long as you have enough of it. I tried laying out a foundation for the beacon, but I realized I didn't really like what I was doing, and I also realized that I wouldn't have any kind of beacon power anytime soon if I did it that way, so I took it down. I went back to the Twilight Forest in order to try to find some more ores. I remember seeing some ore blocks in the Ergas Tower, so that's where I went next. Unfortunately, I didn't find the ore blocks that I found last time, and it wasn't really a useful trip. I did wind up getting a lot of books though, which was definitely worth it. Then I came home, grabbed a bunch of ores, and then I started trying to figure out what exactly I was going to do. I also decided to redo some of my sorting system. I moved some of my blocks into more individualized chests because I had so much deep slate that it could fill almost an entire double chest. So I started moving some of my other stone blocks into their own one as well, like andesite got its own, I think, as well. Like andesite, granite, they all got their own. Then I continued building onto my wither farm. I really just wanted this to look nicer, and I honestly didn't fully know how to make it look nicer, but that's just what I wanted. I didn't like how it looked, and I complained about it the entire playthrough, so it was really a big priority for me. I decided to use bone blocks in the build because I thought they looked really super fucking cool. After I worked on the wither farm for a little while, I went back to the Twilight Forest because I still wanted that extra life charm, but I was really struggling with finding another Aurora Palace where I would have to fight another Snow Queen. I know that her chest isn't specifically where you get it, but I needed another Aurora Palace to loot so that I could get the extra life charm. I accidentally spawned in a Twilight Lich while looting a Lich Tower for bookshelves. I just kind of left. I didn't really care to fight it. And then I flew all the way back to the portal because I was running really low on fireworks and I didn't want to be out in the Twilight Forest with 5 fireworks. I then traded a bunch with my villagers using my lovely infinite money glitch, and then I just spent a bit of time sorting out the loot and all the stuff I got from the Twilight Forest. I also uncrafted a bunch of amethyst shards because I wanted to replace part of the wither farm with tinted glass because it wouldn't affect the spawn levels, but you could see in, and I just thought that was super duper cool. I'm not gonna lie, this is like straight up take 3 of this, so if this audio is bad, I'm just gonna use it, and I'm sorry if the audio for a little while isn't too great. I'm dog sitting for my grandpa, and I'm staying at his house while he visits my sister for a little while. I brought my entire setup with me, but it's also in his kitchen, which has a really bad echo, so I'm gonna remove it in post best I can, and I'm also currently holding a blanket over my mic in hopes that that helps dull the reverb, but I can't make any promises. Alright, back to the video. So one kind of fun, funky thing I did was change out the blocks I wanted to use for the wither farm. So initially I was just going to use, you know, the wood and some other stuff, you know, maybe some stone, but I decided to use wither bone blocks, and I'm actually really happy with that decision because I think it looks fucking amazing. I also decided to put tinted glass in certain parts. I was contemplating using the tinted glass in most of the build, but I realized how, you know, not economical that would be, especially because I would need to get so much amethyst in order to do this, and I don't have an XP farm yet, so I don't really have a good way to get XP in order to uncraft amethyst blocks back into amethyst shards, which is what I need to make tinted glass. So I settled on doing just like the bottom part and then some of the upper part. I also decided to build this big wither skeleton skull, like this bigger version of one, and I thought that made the wither farm look pretty sick. I also used a wither skeleton skull that I already had in order to make like a little thing on the archway entrance. I thought it looked really cool. I also threw torches around all at the top and like sides of the building in order to prevent mobs from spawning on any of the open blocks, because we don't want no motherfuckers spawning where we don't want motherfuckers to be spawning, if you catch my drift. So I went to get ready to fight the wither again because I wanted another star in order to make the warp pocket thing for the waystones mod. So I saw something interesting when I was looking into it. I crafted a local void and I realized I actually don't really need it, and I uncrafted it. I thought it would be something something cool, like, I don't know, some void pocket storage or some shit like that, but it doesn't even make like a cool little pocket dimension or anything like that. It was just really useless. When I was about to go fight the Wither, I actually realized that a raid had took out nearly all of my villagers. I was really devastated about this because this meant that not only was my infinite money glitch broken, all of my enchantment villagers were gone. A few nights before this, I think a night or two before this, I had actually ignored a little raid call because I didn't think that they would attack my villagers for some reason. I was kind of stupid. I shouldn't have ignored it. I should have gone and killed them like I usually do, or like I usually try to, but I haven't had that much issue with kind of ignoring it in the past, so I guess this one just spawned in the right spot or something. It was just really unfortunate, but it's okay. So on day 108, I went back and did the Wither fight. And I did a lot better this time than I did before. I actually dug out the tunnel that you're supposed to dig when you fight the Wither, so killing the Wither was much easier this time around. I also didn't pop one of the little life charms like I did last time after that epic Wither fight. Because I was so much smarter about it, I actually kind of regretted the way I had done it before because I could have had another life charm. And life charms are super important because, like I said earlier, they're basically a cheaper version of a totem. I don't have to go raid an entire woodland mansion for a bunch of totems, and I can just go raid an Aurora Tower and find a few life charms. And frankly, the Aurora Tower is easier to find. After I won the fight, I went back to my base and I crafted a pocket wormhole. This thing would allow me to teleport without actually needing to use a waystone, and this was actually really nice because I went back and retrieved all my old waystones and I was able to use them for future projects, and I was also able to just have some on hand in case I wanted to mark something or wanted to come back to something later. Another thing that's really nice is that if I'm in a sticky situation, or if I'm fighting a boss and I can't get away, or if I'm stuck somewhere about to die, I can use this as a get out of jail free card. So after all of that, I started shuffling the trades with the one villager in the sex shack in order to get something called collection. I wanted collection because it's a really good enchantment that makes it so that items go straight into my inventory instead of me having to run around and collect them all the time, you know? The issue with me wanting this enchantment is that I had to shuffle this villager's trades for over an entire Minecraft day and night. So over 20 minutes is how long it took me to get this trade. And once I got it though, on day 110, I made my way back over to the island in order to finish up clearing out the trees in the forest, because deforestation is totally okay and not a genuine real-world problem. After I tore down most of the forest, I started building the new village, and I started outlining specifically a library building. I also started outlining an armory / ironwork building because I wanted to have different buildings with different villagers that related to the theme of the building. So I wanted to have a bunch of librarians in the library, which is why I was outlining a taller spire for the library, and then I was going to put all the ironwork villagers in the basement of the armory. So things like fletchers, ironworkers, armor smiths, toolsmiths, leatherworkers, things like that. This was just like a lot of building. While I was building, I realized that I was going to need a name for the island and the village overall. So of course, I went and asked my audience, do you want to know what you guys decided to name my village in my 200 days world that's going to be the forever name of this entire island and village? So I usually just ping in my server and I'm like, hey yo, what do I name this, guys? And then you guys will usually respond with a dumb name, and normally I'll pick the first one. But you guys have been so fast at responding to me lately that I have to combine names. Also, sorry if you can hear the dog in the background. He decided right now while I'm recording is the best time to chow down on his food. Okay, so for whatever reason, I didn't put this on the initial recording, but I actually named the village Cornbean because you guys responded so fast that I had to mesh the names together, so that's what I did. After I named the village, I actually went back to the Wither fight area in order to mine. I really needed some more ores for the beacon. I also needed some more deep slate because I wanted it to be a core of the block palette for the entire village. Unfortunately, I didn't pay attention while vein mining and I broke my pickaxe. Now this was kind of a big deal because I didn't have the netherite to replace it quite yet, but at least I had the diamond to replace it. It just meant that I would be wandering around with an unenchanted pickaxe for a little while. After I broke it, I went back to my cabin and I sorted my inventory, and then I decided I was gonna go end busting again. So I started doing the preparations to do that, and then when day 114 rolled around, I actually went end busting. I wound up finding a second elytra and another dragon head, which was super useful because I don't know when I'm gonna need those things, and I can also just use them for decoration. But for the second elytra, I was happy to have this because that meant that I could use it on making more armors and actually have the complete set. There are some armors that need an elytra for the chest plate. While I was doing this, I actually found another one of those boss platforms, and I tried looking around a bit to see like in my UI if there was any kind of guide to it. Turns out there is. There's a whole thing I've been ignoring this entire playthrough. I found out that there's a menu where I can claim a bunch of rewards for doing quests that I haven't seen at all. So I claimed all of that, and as you can see, it completely clogged my inventory. But one thing that I found weird was that it says I hadn't killed some of the bosses that I have already killed. I killed a bunch of liches and like every other thing from the Twilight Forest, but for some reason it doesn't count that I killed the Urgast. I really don't understand, but go off, I guess. I also realized when I claimed all my quests that one thing it gave me was a dragon saddle. I knew that dragons existed in this mod pack, but I thought it was in other versions because I've played Better Minecraft before, and the only dragons that I remember being in this mod pack when I played it last was the Dragon Legacy mod, which adds like all the eggs and the variants, but that was a very different version of Better Minecraft that I haven't played in a long time. And when I played it for monthly mod pack SMP, I didn't find any dragon pets at all. But when I looked into it a bit more, I actually found out that there are two bosses I missed, and that's why I never got the pet dragon. The first boss I missed is the Eye, which is what I need to kill in order to get to the second boss, the Void Shadow, which is what I need to kill in order to hatch the dragon egg to get a pet dragon. But we'll deal with all that later. I stole all the bookshelves and anvils from the boat, and I uncrafted anvils for blocks of iron when I got back to my base. I also enchanted my new pickaxe with efficiency 4 and unbreaking 3 in order to deal with, having a new pickaxe and all. Then, on day 115 all the way to day 119, these are the events that take place. The first thing that happened was that I found out about the two other bosses. The second thing that happened was that I confirmed I can get a pet dragon. And the third thing that happened is that I went back to the end in order to kill the Eye. First, I had to go back to the main end island in order to get crying obsidian from the end pillars. I also had to use birch trees to make more paper to get more fireworks, but I don't remember when exactly I did that, so I don't know if it'll be on screen or not. After I got everything I needed, I went back into the end and I built the little pillar and I summoned the Eye. The Eye is the scariest boss we've taken on yet, with a total of 800 health points or 400 hearts and an attack strength of 4. This boss is going to be nothing like anything we fought before. That's not just because it's from a different mod, but it's because it's a new thing entirely with a whole new style of everything. This was the hardest fight I'd taken on so far, and here's how it went. After I killed the Eye, it was time to move on to the Void Shadow, which was definitely going to be a big step up in regards to how challenging it is. One thing I don't like about these boss fights though is that they're very repetitive and they don't really seem to have that much uniqueness to them, or at least not uniqueness in the right way. Like, they're unique, they stand out, but the things that make them unique are the annoying mechanics about them. And it's just personally not my favorite. I really liked how interactive the Twilight Forest was. I liked how progression locked it was and how clear it was to progress, and how clear the progression was, and how easy it was to figure out what I needed to do when. I don't know, that's just something I would definitely tweak. Just make the progression clearer, and I would also make it so that the attacks aren't as repetitive, because with the Eye it was kind of ridiculous trying to fight it in the end like that, and if I didn't have an elytra and a bunch of fireworks, that fight would not have been possible. But that pales in comparison to what you have to do in order to kill the Void Shadow. But this boss definitely isn't like anything that we've seen before, especially given that it has over 1000 health points or 500 hearts. It also has an attack strength of 10. Killing it will grant us the fame effect, which is what we need in order to hatch the dragon egg. This was the hardest and most tedious fight I've ever been in. I'm very grateful I had the pocket wormhole on me during this fight, because I would have died without it. Here's how the fight went. On day 120, after finally getting rid of the Void Shadow and getting the Fame effect, I went back to my base and I made the little platform that I needed in order to hatch myself a dragon. I literally put the dragon egg on top of the little pyramid and I sat there the entire time and waited for her to grow up. While I waited for her to grow up, do you want to guess what I did? I told my community, hey, I need a name for a pet. And I didn't tell them exactly what pet, and even to me recording this, you guys don't know. Well, I guess you're finding out right now. I didn't tell my community that this was the most important pet in the entire mod pack. So I want you to take a guess as to what my Discord decided that the name for my dragon should be. Was it A, Skibbity Toilet, B, Bungus Grupp, C, Gabe, or D, Mocus Pocus? This is a hard one. It was B, Bungus Grupp. So that was what we decided to name her, but I didn't use a name tag quite yet. After I hatched the dragon, I waited for her to grow up, and then I put my saddle on her. I didn't want to leave her alone, and I also didn't want to have her wandering. After that, when day 121 rolled around, I went to spruce up the Cornbean Island, killing mobs, filling in holes, cutting down the trees, getting rid of like old cobblestone, stuff like that. I also traded a lot of the wood away with villagers and continued work on the library. I continued work on the library all the way until day 122, and then I made a railway at night and I lit up the island. After that, I moved the first baby villager into the library, and I moved a librarian there via rail. And then I continued constructing the library. It's going to be a lot of construction for these next couple days because that's what I was mainly doing. On day 124, I finally named Bungus Grupp with a tag, and I also spent part of the day AFK, but I'm not fully sure why. I think it was because I was waiting for my villagers to grow up. The next day, I started leveling up the villagers, continued my deforestation efforts, and I got rid of all the trees on the Cornbean Island. I also had to sleep because phantoms came around. I then moved baby villagers into the library, continued more construction, traded, added a level to the beacon, and I flew to the other area to deforest. I also added library stairs because I wanted to add more levels into this big spire, and I wanted to make the spire larger, but I think for now we're going to just keep it at this normal size, and then maybe I'll level up the village and build more structures, and as well as, other stuff when I take this world to more days. Like 500 days is probably what I'll do next. So on days 127 and 128, I traded with my librarians and I got a new trade. I also continued constructing the library and I tore down my old villager posts out where I lived in the cabin area. I also made something awesome. Sex Shack 2.0. Brought to you by Cosmonautic, Sex Shack 2.0 seeks to upgrade the previous version by producing between 1 and 4 villagers every day. Using our new patented multiple bed technology, we were able to maximize the amount of villagers you can produce for your farms. And it comes with a free farming villager to increase your food output. Sex Shack 2.0. Meet the higher demand. After I got all that settled, I then made a second level to the library and continued trading. Days 129 and 130 were spent moving villagers around, shuffling their trades, and moving the Sex Shack villagers into the Sex Shack in order to get the villager breeder ready so that I wouldn't have to worry about it later and to start producing villagers while I build. On day 131, I moved more villagers into the library and I shuffled the trades of the ones that had grown up. I finally got some decent enchantments from them and I went to enchant my pick. I was really tired of wandering around with an unenchanted diamond pickaxe. It was getting kind of annoying. I also finished the library roof and upper parts. Day 132, I spent trading, moving villagers, and shuffling their trades. I also started on a watchtower, but the next day I kind of decided that I hated it. I also started putting villagers in the forge, which was really important. Moving the villagers down in the forge would mean that I have easier access to trade with fletchers, leatherworkers, and whatever kinds of villagers I decided to put down there. All I wrote on my notes was also bye-bye trees, which I think means I just cut down a lot more stuff. It also says that I cut down more buildings and took down my dragon altar, and then I shuffled trades. So my guess is that I probably took down the rest of the villager posts that were around my cabin. Day 134, I shuffled more trades, and I decided to make the extra crystal I had, the soul crystal that I made. When I made 2, I hadn't fully decided what I was going to use them for yet, but I decided to use the first one for an Enderman spawner, which in hindsight I don't think was that good of an idea, but I actually have a good idea of where I can use that when I go to 5 500 days, but I'll explain that later. Day 135, I spent killing Endermen, for the most part. All I had to do was stand under a platform and look at them. It was pretty easy to kill as many as I needed to. While I was doing that, I was thinking about what I should make the other spawner, and I wound up deciding on an end warthog spawner. This is because the end warthogs drop shells, which can be turned into netherite scrap, basically giving me a netherite farm, which is super overpowered and also awesome. So the rest of day 135, I spent killing warthog after I got the Enderman soul crystal to max. That bled into day 136, where I was still killing warthogs, but I did take a short break to plant some sugarcane and move the baby villagers around. However, I did go back into the end on day 137 to kill more warthogs. I spent that day finishing up the soul crystal, and it didn't take super long because the warthogs are really easy to aggro. It's just that they're really beefy, so it can take a little while to kill them. I finished that soul crystal, and then I just traded with my Fletchers. I spent a while trying to figure out where to put the farm, and I wasn't really sure what to do about that. I had some big areas around, but I wanted to put the farm somewhere easily accessible, but also not somewhere so close that it would lag me out. But I don't think me lagging would be too big of an issue because the mobs would just immediately start dying, so I don't know. I was just trying to find a good spot. I took a brief trip to the nether in order to get magma and glowstone for my farm and for a spawner. I also started making spawners. So for this mod Spirit, you have to actually make the soul spawner, which I showed in my last video, but it requires a lot of glowstone, so I had to get a bunch for it. That bled into day 138, where I finished 2 spawners. Unfortunately, during that process, I accidentally burned my last life charm. This was a big problem. Nothing we could really do about it now, but it would be something we would have to deal with later. I also cut down the last of my trading posts here, so I said I did that earlier, but I guess I was wrong. I took down my beacon and I started terraforming. On days 139 to 140, I set my beacon back up, traded with my Fletchers in the armory, and then I continued terraforming. I finally figured out kind of what I wanted to do, but I don't think this was where I wanted the spawner to be. I think I had something better in mind. I tore down some trees and I moved Bungus Grupp to the top of my house so that she had a safer spot and somewhere where I could easily see her. I spent a lot of these 2 days terraforming, and I started construction on the armor showcase, which is what this building was going to be. I spent a chunk of this day also AFK, but I think that's because I was looking at what armors I needed and writing them down. I do actually have a list of the armors that I was going to get, and then I spent the rest of the day building. Day 141 was spent building, trading with Fletchers, and I did fix my beacon, so just expect a really big building time lapse that may span over the next couple of days. Although after I had the outline of the building, I did start immediately putting up armor stands and the armors I already had, so after getting all that together, I put up the armor sets that I already had, which knocked out a good chunk of what I needed. So before we move on from this, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the challenge we're doing really quick, and honestly I'll let the time lapse play over this while I talk. So our goal is to get all of the 35 obtainable armors in the game. I counted and there are 36, although there is one that I won't be able to get, and that is the Gilded Netherite from Adventure Z. That one from the get-go I already kind of knew I wouldn't be able to get, so I crossed that one off the list. There are certain armors that I knew I wouldn't be able to get, and one of them was Gilded Netherite from Adventure Z. The other one was Winemaker armor, which was one I would be able to get most of but wouldn't be able to finish. And the reason why I'm not counting these two against our challenge is because they were not obtainable by any means aside from having contact with a specific mob that I can't force to spawn, so I don't think it's very fair. I will definitely go for them if I get the chance during 500 days if I come across the mobs that I need for this. On day 144, I went to the nether to get some quartz and syncinacite. That's a hard one to say. I'm sorry if I mess it up later. I needed the syncinacite for an armor set that I thought looked pretty sick. I also made a trip to the Twilight Forest, and I killed another Hydra for the fiery armor because I didn't have enough Hydra blood or whatever it is to make the armor set. I also raided a new Aurora palace looking for another life charm, which I successfully got. I did wind up killing the Snow Queen in that palace, although it's not necessary to kill the Snow Queen to get the charm. I just wanted to, basically, so I spent the rest of the day building, and that bled all the way into day 145, which is what I spent that day doing. On day 146, I made a trip into the nether and I mined a bunch of warped logs. I also traded with my Fletchers and librarians after converting those into sticks. I then mined my sugarcane, which, you know, gave me a few extra fireworks. It's still not that much though. I needed to set up an automated farm. I then made my way into the end because I needed to get dragon scale armor. That was one of the first ones I wanted to get. Thankfully, I did already have like a big majority of the armors that I needed. Obviously, I already had all the vanilla armors, but I also had pretty much all of the Twilight Forest armors. I think the only armors that I didn't already have or also couldn't craft were the fiery blood armor, whatever that one is, and also the Alpha Yeti armor. I think I had the ability to craft all of the other ones, or I already had all of the other ones. I fought the Ender Dragon 2 more times, and I made new dragon scale armor with the extra elytra. So that's where that elytra went. I actually did want to get other elytras for the rest of the armors, which was something I was trying to do in order to fully complete the set, even with its extra chest plate, because there were multiple armors. I believe Crystallite, as well as I believe there were 2 other armors, Crystallite and Warden armor, that both required an elytra. So I was definitely going to go looking for 2 extra elytras. I moved the Twilight armor sets to a different wall because I didn't have enough space on the one I'd already put them on, and then I mined my sugarcane again. I also started building a small automatic sugarcane farm for the time being, although I did plan to expand this later. While I was building, I actually tested it and I realized that I used sticky pistons instead of regular pistons, thinking it would be fine, but sticky pistons can move glass, so I had to uncraft the sticky pistons into regular ones, which after replacing that, the farm was done. I also upgraded my wither farm and added more witherbone blocks. On day 149, I sorted my inventory, traded with my librarians, and shuffled trades for the upstairs villagers, as well as any villagers that didn't have trades. That bled into day 150, which also had me still shuffling trades. I also traded with my Fletchers on that day, and wow, we're halfway through! Isn't that crazy? I wonder what point in the video we are in. I'm 17 minutes into this voice recording, but I've recorded like 3 others, so I don't know. My voice is a little tired and my head hurts, but I'm determined to get this voice recording done today. Day 151, I finally picked where I wanted to build the Ender Warthog farm. From now on, I'll be calling that I was going to say from now on I'm going to call that the EWF, but I feel like that's just even harder to say, so day 152 to day 154 were spent building the Ender Warthog farm and testing it as well. Here's the big time lapse because this took forever and I also had to basically build this from scratch. So if you guys wanted an exact tutorial on how I built this, and if you guys want me to talk about the fundamentals of building your own farm when you're in a circumstance where there's no tutorial for how to do it, let me know. I'll make some modded tutorials for you guys. Or if there's a specific mob that you want to farm in Better Minecraft that you want me to make a tutorial to build a farm for, let me know. Unfortunately, this farm has no XP functionality, but that's because the Ender Warthogs have a very big range of where they can hit you from, so there's no way to really get around that. I made another trip and I'm not fully sure why. I think it was either to get magma blocks or to find gold, or just I went there for a reason, but I don't remember. I found a weird boss chamber and I activated the boss, but that boss really sucked. So on day 155, I was fighting the boss and I actually almost died to it. Thankfully, I had a life charm, so even if I had popped the charm, I wouldn't have died, but like you get the point. It was this stupid hand boss and it was really, really awful to fight. I swear, some of these bosses, they aren't as good as the Twilight Forest Forest ones, and that's not to shit on the mods, it's just I don't like bosses that can fly away from me, escape their chamber, and then heal because they flew away from me and are too far from me. On top of that, I don't like ones that can just explode and trap me in a hole. I feel like that's really annoying. I want something interactive that makes it so there are attacks that I have to dodge and stuff like that that are super cool, so I'm not just swinging my sword and killing it, but I also want something that isn't like super repetitive. I can't damage it from a range, you know, stuff like that. That's all really annoying. I actually had to give up on this boss because it escaped its chamber and I ran out of fireworks, so I couldn't chase it down. On day 156, the first thing I did was use birch bark for paper. I actually had to run to the birch trees, I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure if this is when I had to run to the birch trees in order to get bark for paper, but I'm pretty sure this was it. I had to use the birch bark for paper because that's the easiest source I have of it, but I also was completely out of fireworks, so I traded with my villagers, especially because after mining the birch and, you know, stripping it to get the bark, I have a lot of leftover birch wood, so it makes for good trading. I also moved my villagers around a bit. On day 157, I traded with my Fletchers again, and then I made a trip to the Twilight Forest. I looted one of the red cap hills, which was, you know, a pretty good idea, especially considering I was running a little low on some resources. And then I made my way over to the snow biome to kill some yetis for the yeti armor. That led into day 158, where I was still killing more yetis. And I also had to go to the end to get more things for armor, for the better end armors. It was a long process trying to get everything for these. Day 159, I spent getting the armor together. And wow, I hope this isn't echoing too bad. I also traded with my librarians. Then I looked up at Bungus and I just kind of looked at her and I was like, okay, Bungus, you are on a very small platform. You get rained on, you get weathered on. I felt bad for her. So I built a little platform on top of my like armor area. I don't even know what to call it. A museum, I guess, on top of my armor museum. We'll call it that for now. I built a little roof on there and I built like a secondary level and I filled in part of it, but I didn't fill in the other part because I want her to still be able to go to like the other side and be okay, but I also want her to have shelter from the rain. So that's what I did. I also killed some raiders that tried coming because now I'm definitely killing any raiders that come by. Day 160, I spent looking for ruby ore. It took forever. I looked online how to find ruby ore because it took me so long to try to figure it out, and I tried to mine at different levels trying to figure out where to find it, and I did eventually wind up finding it, but it took a really long time. I was very, very, very lucky that I found it, I guess. I also spent the rest of that day tearing down trees and trading with my Fletchers. Day 161, I went back to the Nether to finish up my, little thing for rubies, and then I finished trading more with my Fletchers, and then I went back to mine for rubies. It was a lot of on and off, in the Nether, out of the Nether, in the Nether, blah 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 blah. On day 162, I labeled all of my completed armors with signs, and just for clarification so that everyone's on the same page of where we were at this point, I had leather, chainmail, gold, iron, diamond, and netherite, which completes our vanilla set. Phantom, Naga Scale, Steel Leaf, Arctic, Fiery, Night Metal, Ironwood, and Yeti Armor, which completes our Twilight Twilight Forest one. And then for miscellaneous modded, we had Gilded Netherite, not the one from Adventure Z, there's a secondary kind of Gilded Netherite, Dragon Scale, Delasium, Nether Ruby, and Syncinacite. Those were the ones we had fully completed at this time, which I think makes for 19 out of the 35. I sorted my inventory and I started on the winemaker armor because, like I said earlier, I had most of the materials to make it. I actually did have to go to the Twilight Forest though for wool and leather. After going to the Twilight Forest on day 163, I was able to complete sterling armor, fur armor. However, quick note here, there are multiple armors called fur armor. This is the colorful, kind of weird looking one. That's what I'm talking about. I was able to get most of the winemaker armor done, but I realized at this point that there was one thing, the gloves, that I wouldn't be able to get without finding a trader from this specific mod. And unfortunately, I don't know how likely that is to happen. Then I took Bungus exploring, and I looted a witch tower. I also came across this weird mushroom area. I've come across it before. It's full of like piglins and stuff, but they're modded piglins. I marked the area off thinking it could maybe be a gold farm later on. Considering we already have our warthog farm, I figured a gold farm was definitely on the horizon, and I thought, oh, maybe this will save us having to make a spawner for some other mob that drops gold. So I marked it down for later, and I continued exploring. Eventually, I didn't really find as much as I was kind of hoping, so I brought Bungus back home and I went back out exploring on my own. I needed polar bears for the other fur armor variants. So I do have a little note on here that says I have to get the footage from the replay. So what most likely happened is in OBS, and this has happened on my streams before too. So what most likely happened is my OBS froze on one screen, so I still have all the audio, but I don't have any of the like actual footage. Unfortunately, this happens sometimes. I don't know why. I don't know what bug it is with OBS, but it's happened to me every update and every version I've had. I don't know if it's just a me thing or what's going on, or if it's because I use display capture or if I use game capture. I don't know. It's happened to me on stream before. It's just something that happens. So if you guys are seeing weird replay footage that doesn't have any taskbar or that doesn't have any hotbar or any UI, that's why. It's just because I still have the footage. I just don't have it in the original recording. Thankfully, this is one reason why I press so hard on replay mod and using it even when you aren't expecting to use it, is because you can recover recordings that are super important that you wouldn't have another way to get. So I had to shave polar bears, which I felt really bad about because they had marks on them and it made me feel really guilty and it's really gross, but I had to for one of the armor variants. It took forever. I also bred my dogs and I got a new puppy. I finished the other fur armor and I also finished the fur padded armor. I realized I didn't have enough fur to finish the armor, so I went into my big inventory storage and I found that I did actually have enough to finish it down there. So I finished the fur armor, finished the fur padded armor, and I killed an illusioner. I think because I was out exploring and I killed one while I was exploring, and I got this really weird totem, but alright. I also asked my Discord, of course, what to name my new puppy, and you guys decided Bunkus. You know what? Bungus and Bunkus. You know what? We love it. On day 166, I went to the end to get some more ores for armor. When I got back, I made a better end furnace to start working on the better end armors because there are multiple armor sets from that mod. I cut down some warped logs, traded with my Fletchers, and then I started on building an Enderman farm. This took me several days, and I also followed a specific tutorial. The name of the YouTuber is going to be on screen. I don't have it in front of me right now, and there's also going to be a link in the description that has any tutorials that I followed during this playthrough. That was something I did in my previous playthrough when I made my creeper farm. I did follow an exact model from somebody, as I did for this one. The Enderman farm is kind of unique in the fact that I've never built one before, so there's no twist on this from me. Same as with that creeper farm. I didn't make this at all. The YouTuber who's on screen right now and who will be linked below, go make sure you subscribe, go check them out. Their tutorials are amazing, super easy to follow. I really appreciated it. Day 172 I spent getting the better end armors together. I also decided to use warthogs as a source of food since, as a side effect of having them be farmed, I actually did get the warthog meat, so I started cooking that in my furnace area. I put up some smokers in place of where I had previously taken out the blast furnaces. I also went mining in the wither area, although I'm not fully sure why. I think I just needed some more ores. After everything smelted, I finished my terminite armor, which is from the Better End mod. Making the armor from Better End was really, really tedious and kind of annoying. The sheer amount of everything that you need in order to be able to make anything in this mod is kind of absurd, and it's not even super powerful armor. Like, I get it, if I didn't have other armor mods it would be super powerful, but when I already have armor that's more powerful than this, it's just kind of tedious and annoying to make. Granted, I did make it because I needed it for a challenge, but you still understand. You still can understand where I'm coming from when I have to use like most of the resource that I get from the end just to make enough of the ore, or just to make enough of the ingots to make multiple anvils to be able to create this armor. You can understand why I got so annoyed with it. On day 173, I finally caved and realized I needed a gold farm. I went to the piglin spawner and I realized the piglins didn't drop anything, and this is likely because they were modded piglins, which I thought was really, really annoying, but you know what? It's fine. So I decided to get a zombified piglin spawner because zombie piglins do drop gold and gold things and gold nuggets, and yeah. So I went back to the nether and I killed a lot of zombified piglins. Day 174 was spent killing zombified piglins, like almost in its entirety. Day 173 and 174 were almost spent in their entirety killing zombified piglins, and this is when I did encounter the piglin, like major piglin brute, or I don't know what it was called, but it was this really big piglin. After I got back, I was debating on where to put the farm, and I didn't quite know what to do with it yet, so I decided to think on it for a minute, and while I was thinking about it, I made an infusion pedestal, which I needed to progress further in the better end armors. I needed that to make crystallite, so I set up the infusion pedestal, but I didn't fully understand how to use it yet. That'll come later. Then I started prepping how to make the zombified piglin farm. I was researching how to passively kill zombie piglins, but the only way to do that is fall damage. They don't drown, they don't take fire damage, they don't take magma damage, they don't take lava damage, they can't suffocate. Well, I'm sure they can suffocate, but that's really hard to automate, especially with the rate that they'll be spawning at. So the only solution is fall damage. I also made a pretty big brain decision when I realized that this spawner has the same radius and spawn conditions as the warthog spawner, so I just stacked the two. Then once I stacked them, after turning off the warthog spawner obviously, I went to start modifying the farm. I spent day 176 modifying the farm, and here's the little time lapse for that. After that, I turned on the farm and just started letting it run. It was running perfectly and everything was working just as planned. Then I went and set up the infusion pedestal after looking up how to do it because I didn't know how to do it. After setting it up, I was able to get most of the crystallite set, but I didn't have all of it quite yet. I had to make a trip back to the end island on day 178 in order to get more stuff for armor, and I sat at my enderman farm for a bit just to get some XP. This day was just a lot of like overall maintenance, checking on things, making sure my farms were running correctly, trading, all of the above. It It was everything, a little bit of everything, which makes it even harder to summarize. Day 179, I went end busting looking for another elytra. I looted like the top parts of an end city, which was really annoying because shulkers are so fucking annoying. Next to phantoms, they were probably my least favorite mobs. So next to phantoms, shulkers are definitely one of my least favorite mobs. And I think shulkers are cool and all, which is why they're above phantoms, but they are so goddamn annoying. After I looted the end city, I finished my crystallite set and had that all set up, which was really awesome. I felt like I was almost done with better end armors, which made me really happy because I didn't want to fucking deal with this mod anymore. Speaking of really annoying mods that got on my nerves through this playthrough, day 180, I started prepping to go to the Bumble Zone. I went into the Bumble Zone later that day and I started exploring. I knew getting these armors in the Bumble Zone was going to be hard because there are 4 things I'm looking for. I'm looking for 2 sets, and then I'm also looking for 2 variants. So I'm going to have 4 sets in total. Problem is, I can only get these from the Bee Queen, and I have no idea how to find the Bee Queen. This was also a mod that I had to rely heavily on the wiki for, which makes me really sad because I like it when I can figure mods out on my own and everything, but with this, I felt like I was following the instructions in game and finding the compasses, but it just wasn't progressing me, so I had to look it up, and I did find out discovering why and figuring everything out, which was really nice. So while exploring, I found a weird dance platform, had a little dance party for a bit, and then day 181, I explored the entire Bumble Zone. I found this little ship with like bee pirates. It was super cute. I also found a weird tower that I explored and looted. Day 182, I explored and eventually wound up leaving the Bumble Zone because I couldn't find the Bee Queen. This was when I decided to just take a break, go to bed, get some rest, because I had been really determined to finish the bee armors that night. I specifically remember my friend telling me to go get some sleep because I sounded really annoyed and really frustrated. And I also worked the next day, so all over bad things. On day 183, I just chilled at the Enderman farm. I needed a lot of XP. I needed to repair my tools, so I just spent the entire day there. Then on day 184, I sorted some inventory, and I also checked on my netherite farm, and then I also wound up finishing the Eternium set, which was really awesome. I'm pretty sure that was the last set we needed for the better end armors, which, you know, made me really happy. Although I did want to get the crystallite elytra, I just wasn't sure at this point in the playthrough if I was going to be able to do it. I had already gone end busting probably 3-4 times, and I'd only ever found 2 elytras, so trying to find more was definitely going to be a challenge. And on top of that, I still had other armors to worry about, so I put that on the back burner. On day 185, I made my way back into the Bumble Zone, and I found a labyrinth. The labyrinth is one of the major steps in finding the Bee Queen because in the labyrinth, there is actually a compass that you find that leads you to the Bee Queen's tower. So I explored the entire labyrinth, which wasn't that easy because I had to get protection of the hive, which I didn't know how to do. So once I figured that out, which I just had to give some honey to the bees like in the little pod things, I got protection of the hive and was able to explore. I actually did find 1 set of bee armor while down here, but I knew the other sets would probably have to come from the Bee Queen. So when I found the Bee Queen compass, I immediately made my way out and I went to go find the Bee Queen's pillar. On day 187, I realized I couldn't find my way in and I had to go home for more fireworks. I actually made a waypoint there while I was there so that I would have a way back to the Bee Queen's pillar. I was really annoyed though because I didn't have a waystone on me, which meant I was going to have to teleport into the Bumble Zone and then make my way all the way back to the Bee Queen pillar. But at this point, with no fireworks, it was more than worth it to just go home. On day 188, I checked on my netherite farm. I went back to the Bumble Zone and I found the Bee Queen. Turns out there was an opening in the pillar that I had just somehow missed when I was last in there, and I immediately put down a waystone once I was next to her. The Bee Queen wanted tomatoes, so I had to do that trade first. I made my way back to my Enderman farm because I needed XP. I was literally out. And then on day 189, I immediately flew to a new village to find someone that trades tomatoes. I don't think I found anybody that did, but I was able to find tomato seeds either in a chest or planted on the ground. I'm not sure, I don't remember. And I was able to grow tomatoes when I got back to my base right outside my inventory area. After that, I immediately made my way back to the Bee Queen and I was able to get all of the bee armors, which was awesome. I had to trade with her a lot though. So, it wasn't like super, oh wow, right, went right back and she gave me the armors. No, I think I had to trade a shitload of honey with her. On day 190, I basically tore down a bunch of birch trees to get wood for paper. And then I AFK'd at the creeper farm all the way into day 191 because I was even out of gunpowder at this point. On day 191, I went back to the nether to get more glowstone. Then I built an Aether portal, which ironically wasn't from the Aether mod, it was from the Paradise Lost mod. I don't know how that worked. I never explored the mod, but I went into the Aether or Paradise Lost world, whatever that was, and I got the stuff I needed for Olvite armor, which sounds like me saying all right in a funny accent, which is what my friends all thought I was doing when I was telling them about the armor I was getting. After that, I made my way back into the end real quick to go get some stuff for Ametrine armor, which thankfully I had an island that had the Ametrine stuff in it, so it wasn't very hard. Day 192, I spent trading. I was trying to level up the cartographer in order to get a map to the mansion, which was a lot of trading. While I was waiting for stuff to refresh on day 193, I looted the boat with the skeleton pirates. Then I went back to trading, and then I actually switched out some of the beacon blocks with netherite because, well, what would be cooler than being able to say, oh, I built a netherite beacon in my 200 days world. That would be pretty cool. I don't think it's feasible to do at this point, but still pretty cool. Still a good idea for 500 days. Then I checked on my netherite farm, ironically. After that, I went and did some more trading, and when I was at my little cornbean island after I exhausted the trades, I dug my way down, and this was because I was trying to see on my minimap if there was a skulk cave anywhere, and I actually dug into a dungeon with a spawner, like one of the classic vanilla ones. So that was definitely weird, but I did wind up finding a skull cavern on the minimap, and I marked it with a waypoint. I had to make my way back up, and I flew all the way out to it. On my way there, I found a cool looking village. I think it was a Skyrus village. It looked real sick though. Definitely somewhere I would want to go back. Day 194 was spent exploring the Skulk Cavern and looting the ancient city down there. It was really scary because I've not fully played with the Warden yet. I know the Warden came in the 1.19 update, right? So, no. When did the Warden get put in the game? I don't know. I know the Warden came with one of the more recent updates, and I don't tend to play up-to-date Minecraft that often. A lot of the time, I'm on 1.16.5 or 1.12.2 or something just pre-Warden, so I don't get to play with the Warden in the game a lot. So this was definitely really scary for me. I got some stuff together, mined some of the skulk for XP, which was definitely a good idea. It's something I did in Better Minecraft back when I was playing for monthly mod pack. Then I went back through my waystone and I continued trading with my villagers. I also flew back to the cavern to put a waystone down because I didn't put one down the first time, and then I looted more of the city. Day 195, I went back to my base and I traded more. I was finally able to get a map to a mansion. After I got the map, I started flying to the mansion, which took forever, literally forever, and it didn't help that I was lagging horribly. After I found the mansion, I started exploring, and oh boy, I got so many totems that it's not even funny. I got so many, it was like clogging my inventory, but I was really grateful for it because they came in handy later, which I'll tell you about later. I also found a cool altar that I wound up taking back to my base. The altar, I'll explain what it does right now because I did mess with it later, and I don't know when I did it, so I'm going to talk about it now, so the footage might not match, but the altar, it basically levels up one random enchantment on the armor in exchange for giving you a curse on the armor. So you'll get Curse of Vanishing, Curse of Binding, Curse of Less Efficiency, whatever. So Curse of like breaking easily, stuff like that, even modded curses. So I think I got Curse of Binding on my pants later on, and I also got like a curse that made my pickaxe less efficient, or not less efficient, but it made my pickaxe break faster. The Curse of Binding, I guess, will be more relevant later because I'm in hardcore. I can't die. I can't take these pants off. So I guess if I ever want to change my armor or take my armor off, I'll have to literally break it. So that will be a long process. I don't remember when I did it, so I'm just saying it now. On day 196, while I was still exploring, I found a boss in the basement that I didn't know existed. I killed it really easily. Like it wasn't that hard of a boss. After killing the boss, I found an adorable owl. I freed it, and then I also put down a waystone and I went home. So I did wind up getting most of the cladded armor, but the unfortunate reality of it is that I checked the loot tables and it literally cannot spawn in the chests, so I think I already talked that through. I was still looking for the cladded stuff on day 197, but I found out it wasn't going to be in the chests. I actually did try looting the mansion next to it, I even tried looting the other mansion, and I actually nearly died. No luck in finding the helmet either. When I checked the loot tables, it did say that it only spawns in that specific mansion, so even trying out the other one wouldn't work. I dug down and dug into a cavern that actually had these cool fish. I don't remember what I named it, but you guys can probably see on screen right now. On day 198, I went and I traded with my librarians, and I accidentally killed one. Kind of pissed me off because I was really annoyed about that. This is the day I put my stuff through the altar that I talked about earlier, and then I went back to the Skulk Cavern. I looted the rest of the city, and I was lucky because I spotted a new one on the minimap. I began digging that way. Day 199 was spent digging to the new city, and I actually started looting it. Unfortunately, while looting it, I disturbed the Warden. Now, the thing that makes the Warden so scary, especially for me, is that I don't play an up-to-date Minecraft, which I talked about earlier. So when I spawned in the Warden, I thought this might be the end of the playthrough once it popped my totem. Thankfully, I was fast enough to get more totems into my charm slots, and then I decided that I wasn't going to be afraid anymore, so I literally whipped out a sword and basically raw dogged the Warden. Here's the it's going to be a lame edit. It's going to be a lame boss fight, but here's the cinematic edit of it. And then finally, after popping multiple totems, the Warden was dead. On day 200, I made part of the Warden set, but sadly I couldn't finish the full set. I just didn't have time. We got all the armors aside from Winemaker, Second Gilded Netherite, Cladded Armor, and the Warden Armor. I explained why earlier, but the Winemaker Armor, Second Gilded Netherite, and the Cladded Armor all would rely on me finding a certain mob to kill to get the drop. Because all of these mobs are exceptionally rare, that's not very possible. The Warden Armor, it just came so last second, and I feel like I did a good job getting most of them, but I will definitely be going to finish them in the next playthrough. After that, I checked on the netherite farm, flew around the world a bit, and gave a tour to some of my friends, and I logged out. And that's 200 days in hardcore better Minecraft, and wow, that's a beast of a video. It's crazy to think that just last month I put out my very first 100 days video that I've ever fully finished, and it's even more insane to think that I'm putting out the extension to that video now. And I wanted to have this video out 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, time didn't permit that. I got a new job. A lot of stuff happened, so it's late, but I hope you guys enjoy. Yeah, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, all of the above. And hey, I mean, if you like the character design you see in the video and you like the art that you see in some of my stuff, I actually do have some of the designs that the characters wear on their shirts up on my Redbubble if you want to check that out too. It's not an official merch shop because I'm a very, very tiny creator, but it's designs I made myself, and I like Redbubble. I have one of their hoodies with one of the old versions of the design on it, and I really like it. It's lasted me a few months at this point, so it's still going strong. Just gotta wash and dry it carefully, but it's going strong. So I can vouch for the quality of the hoodie. I'd say be careful about other stuff on their site for sure, but I'm rambling at this point. This was a big passion project of mine, and I hope you guys enjoy watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. You have a good rest of your day or night, whatever time it is for you. Goodbye.